Hey everybody, welcome back to the next training module. Now you just finished up on the follow-up section and you got the phone call. The seller is ready to sell. Now it's time to go over the exclusive right to sell agreement. Now before we go into details, I want to really talk about more behind the scenes and where this form comes from. So at Legacy Broker Academy, we don't really publish any of these forms because it gets down to the specifics of where you live, the state you're selling, and really a lot of local legal teams will support you in that manner. The one that we're going to be going over today is something that's here in Texas. It's our local BizBroker Plus firm and what we use here specifically. So again, it's going to be up to you to go out to your lawyers and get that advice and make sure that you have this thing dialed in. Now, with that said, most of these agreements are really the same. They have the main headers, what you're trying to achieve, and I don't want you to really overcomplicate it. At the end of the day, we can go through this and be able to make you comfortable so you can walk your potential seller through this actual form. All right, so let's dive in. The exclusive right to sell agreement, it's probably 6 to 7, 8 pages on average, depending on where you are local and the different laws that you have. And it's really going to consist of just a few different major points. And the first thing I want you to do is make sure that the potential seller is at ease. It's not like we're signing a house here. This is really an exclusive right to partner together to sell your business and be in this transaction together. And that's, again, what you want to reiterate when you first get in there. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, this is the exclusive right. We've already talked about it. Basically, it means that we're going to be partnering up together and be able to sell your business. So let's go through it real quick. I want to highlight some of the details and we will be able to walk you through this and make it happen. All right. So really, the first one is the first bullet point that we want to talk about is really just listing the information. It's important that you know and understand who's actually selling this business. Is it Corey or is it Corey's LLC? At Texas LLC, whatever the actual LLC name is. Is it my wife and I? Is it my brother and I? Who's actually selling the business? And that needs to be listed on this document, the actual LLC or the S Corp or whatever it is. You need to make sure you see that paperwork and that you understand what's correctly listed on that title. Now, the next and most famous one is in the bullet point number 2, which is listing price. This is where you get hung up most of the time with these potential sellers. I want you to reiterate, and I'll say it multiple times through this training, the listing price is just the starting point. We have multiple avenues that you can go after before we really get this listing price, but we don't want to get it held up. You can have the company evaluated and we can go with that list price, which I would suggest that you do on some occasions. However, a lot of times these business sellers will know what they want to sell it at. And in your mind, you might say, hey, that's way too high, or that's way too low, for example, or you actually have no idea what this is supposed to sell at, both you or the actual seller. It's okay. What we want to do is we want to say, what is our actual idea of what we think we should get for this thing? And let's put that number down. This number can always change. Nobody knows on the business marketplace if a price goes up or price goes down unless you specifically market it. So put the tensions to ease and say, hey, look, we're going to get a price down here. We can go the valuation route. We can go, let's look at some comps across other businesses that have possibly are listed or even sold. And then let's come to the conclusion if we need to change it, we can change it. But again, not a big deal because in the business world, there's no traction of whether or not the price has been changed unless you advertise that, okay? Now, once you pass the listing term, it comes down to the actual term of the partnership. And you'll see me use that word a lot. This is a partnership selling your business. Industry average could be, depending on the price, if it's usually under $1 million, it's about 6 months. If it's usually over that, it can go up to a year. I haven't really ever seen one be over a year before, but you never know, right? So the term is everything, and you have to explain why the term is important. It's going to take an actual seller, to be able to give you the documents about 30 days. So by the time you get your tax forms, the proof of the legality of the business, or anything like that, it usually takes 30 days to get it done. And also, while you're waiting to get those documents, you're creating the marketing. And that's creating the SIMs and things behind the scenes, getting it active on the marketplace. So you want to reiterate, hey, 30 days, the first 30 days, don't really expect too much because it's about getting our ducks in a row. And then on average, it takes about 2 to 3 months to sell this thing and get buyers qualified, make sure we push it through the right systems. And then it usually takes our legal teams roughly 30 to 45 days to close. That's specifically my experience. It could be a little bit different on your side of things, but you want to really set that term that, hey, 6 months is really what we need, because the first month is really just getting it listed. This last month is really getting it sold. And I need a minimum 3 to 4 months to really get this thing sold. So that is how you discuss the term in my specific manner. Now, the firm fee, and we've talked a little bit about this before in our other modules, but you don't want to be shy here, and you want to come with confidence. Depending on your area and the percentages that you want to go for, I've seen the standard is 15%, and sometimes it can go down to whatever percentage you want it to go on based off of the business you're selling. For example, you're selling a franchise that's got 100 stores. They're going to negotiate a different price. You're selling a small mom and pop grocery store, it's going to be 15%, because it's going to require a lot of marketing to go behind the scenes with this, okay? Be confident. That's the message I want to send to you in this bullet point. Be confident, because this is where your commission is made, and you have the right to that money, and you earned it by having the background that you have, okay? You are qualified. You've gone through these trainings, these academies to make sure that you're ready there. So have pride in that. As we keep going on, there's other fees that you want to talk about. And you could say, hey, look, at this point, most of the fees that you really need to worry about are the closing fees. That's the commission, that's the lawyers, that's the transaction coordination. But you say, don't worry, like these fees are usually X amount based off of your experience. Again, we can talk about mine. It's usually $3,000 to $10,000 if it's under $1 million. If it's over that, it can go into different crazy numbers, right? Based off of the valuation of the company. But let's just kind of keep it on there. Let's say, hey, good news, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Most of the time that's broken down usually half and half by the buyer and the seller, or it's assumed in the loan. Different areas and opportunities that you could bring to them to put their mind at ease. Again, this is a lot to them. They've owned this business for a long time. This is their baby, and they really want to make sure it's done right. So again, put their mind at ease, because this is a lot of the emotions going on right now. Now, the protection period, again, it's self-explanatory. It protects you from, essentially the buyer cutting you out of the deal. And yes, it will happen if you don't know what you're doing. And that's why these courses are extremely important to go through. Because if at the end of the day, the buyer may get a potential buyer, and the seller will say, hey, I'm not really wanting to sell it anymore. They'll wait for your transaction time to end, and they will then go contact that potential buyer themselves to cut you out. It's happened. I'm sure every broker out there can say a related type of experience. So this is what that means. But again, read this in detail as if you are the potential seller of the business. Now, to sell this business, you need access, you need information, you need pictures. And this is where you set the term and the expectations right then and there. You want to tell them, hey, look, at the end of the day, I need access to some financials. You may not have all of it, and that's okay, because some businesses won't even file taxes until they have to. So you take in that in mind that you are really now asking really for someone's social security number and their personal world. So behind the scenes, it's scary to let people know what's going on. So say, hey, look, I need the general idea of like your profits, your financial information. I don't need to know the cash in the bank. I don't need to know if you employee is about to quit just yet. I really want to understand the really basic documents of the business. I need access to that, and we can talk about that moving forward. We've talked about the marketing. We've talked about the different closing fees and legal fees. The really next part is really the confidentiality, and this is extremely important to nail down. If you don't stress the importance of confidentiality in this transaction, I know as a current business owner, you're not going to represent me, because I don't need anybody and everybody to know what's going on in my business. So you want to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, confidentiality is utmost important to me, and we are not going to let anybody into this world unless we know that they're proven and we know that they have the financial means to actually buy your business. So we won't be just spreading the word everywhere. This is a very confidential process, and that's normal in the business world. Assure them that, hey, we really dot our I's and cross our T's with this. Then they'll talk about, you could get into escrow and closing and titles, but it really becomes too much at this point. You'll just simply highlight that in a general sense. Hey, please read this in full detail at another time, or right now if you have the time, if you will. But really at this point, this all changes based off of the closing and the escrow companies that we use. But again, just like you would buy a house, you're gonna have an escrow, and that's how it's gonna work. And if they're not familiar with it, take the time to go through it. Now, as you go through the remaining bullet points, the overall governing laws, the entire agreement, the fees and payment terms, commission, intermediary status, all these different things, they're all very self-explanatory, okay? The big objections and the main topics that I'm talking about, we just covered. So read this in full detail. And again, this is not the letter of the law here. It's going to be different in your specific firm and your specific state. So this is just a simple, what we use here at BizBroker Plus to go through it. All right, we'll see you on the next course. Thanks for joining.